We're in the middle of a once a month series on the 10 Commandments, and we're up to number 3. I titled this sermon, God Wants You to Be Rich, because that is one of the outrages of our culture. And on the front of your bulletin, you'll see Jesus with his face in his hand. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this sermon. In the summers, we used to go up to Roaring River, North Carolina mountains, where my Uncle David had a cabin near Daniels Pass, North Carolina. And I remember riding in the back of his old Jeep. This is a famous Jeep, and once he was driving it with my Uncle Bull, and the Jeep started to fill up with smoke. And Bull was like, David, I believe we should pull over. There's smoke. I don't see anything, David said. David was a family practice doctor. Anyway, finally, somebody passed them on the highway and said, you're on fire, before David finally pulled over. But anyway, I was riding in the back of this famous Jeep of Uncle David's, and he reprimanded me sternly, which is very unusual for him. He was the second to youngest of 13 children, and he really hardly ever got stern about anything. And what I had done was I had said, in the way of Southern children, "Gah." I have no idea how to spell that. It's a child's word. It's to avoid saying golly, which I knew was forbidden, because golly is a way of not saying God and taking the name of the Lord in vain. So even 3 times removed from taking the Lord's name in vain, I was reprimanded sternly by this very easygoing man for saying "Gah." That's what this third commandment is about. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. So, the original Hebrew says, Lo tisa es sha'im adoshem l'shav. And the key word is tisa, which doesn't really mean take. It means carry, or means lift high like a banner. Don't lift high the name of God like a banner in a way that is a misuse. And it's the only one of the commandments that's tagged with this at the end, which is why David was so stern. The Lord will not hold anyone guiltless, literally will not cleanse somebody who does that. And so I asked myself, my idea about the bottom line of Christianity, even though I'm not a Christian anymore, my idea about the bottom line of Christianity is that God is love, and you have to look at the Christian scriptures and the Hebrew scriptures with that lens. Does it go with that, or does it not go with that? And so a God who would refuse to cleanse a child for saying golly, when God would cleanse a murderer or whatever, that does not make any sense at all. And it has to make sense. So, I cannot think that all those people at the end of, the end of home improvement shows or yard improvement shows or the treehouse show or anything, there's the reveal and everybody goes through the place going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. All those people are going to be not cleansed forever, please. Ancient Jews just avoided saying the name of God altogether. I've told you this before. They used the letters Yod, He, Vav, He. Those are Hebrew letters without vowels. And those letters are called the tetragrammaton. You've probably heard that term before, the tetragrammaton, which is the name of God. But they don't pronounce those y, h, v, h. They don't pronounce those consonants that are the tetragrammaton. They just say Adonai, which is translated the Lord, or they say Hashem, which just means the name. And that way they avoid taking God's name in vain. And later, Christian scholars took the vowels from the name Adonai and put them on the tetragrammaton letters and came up with the pronunciation Jehovah. So that's how you get Jehovah, is the vowels from Adonai slapped under the tetragrammaton Yod He Vav He. Things you probably never needed to know, but I spent years learning these things, so by God, you're going to learn them. But when Moses was talking to the burning bush, they had a conversation, God and Moses. God spoke from the burning bush, and Moses asked God's name, and what God said was, I am who I am. That's what the translation says, I am who I am. And a better translation would be, I will be who I will be. It's got some motion in it. And I remember one preacher saying, I will be who I will be. That proves that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I'm thinking, I don't get that from I will be who I will be. That sounds like change to me. It doesn't sound like somebody saying I'm the same. And if I said to you, what's your name? And you said, I'll be who I'll be. That wouldn't say, same yesterday, forever to me. But see, there you go. I mean, people just see what they already think in whatever scripture they're using. They don't ordinarily let it change them that much. So, I could be reading more into that text, and I really hardly ever read the text anymore because I've done it too much. And yet, it's interesting to me to bring my Unitarian Universalist mind to the scriptures of my childhood, and I see, I will be who I will be. That's interesting. That's an interesting name for someone. And then I see more evidence of what I want to see in there about the Tao, which can be named as not the Tao. I talked to you about that a couple Sundays ago. So I see this God who talked to Moses going before the people of Israel in the wilderness, and God went before them as a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire. And I'm thinking, what more changeable thing could you make yourself into? I mean, God didn't, lope along ahead of them as a cheetah. God didn't buzz around as a dragonfly, and even those things are changing. But no, a pillar of smoke and a pillar of fire, you can't even grab hold of those things when you're right next to them. And so I think, because I'm reading in what I want to read in, anyone who tries to grab hold of what God is like is going to be frustrated, or at worst burned, not by hell, just metaphorically, because we don't believe in hell, which makes reading the whole Bible a lot more relaxing. And also, when Moses asks to see God, he is allowed to see God up on the mountain. I don't know if you learned this story in Sunday school, if you ever went, but Moses is allowed to see God, but he only sees the back of him. I don't know how you tell what's the front and what's the back. I don't know. But Moses only gets to see God as he passes by. And some scholars say that this means we never see God. We just see where God has been. And that makes sense to me. The divine force is always changing, and we only see where it's been. And even that is open to question and interpretation. And even, please, Uncle David, I'm talking to you now, even though you're somewhere else. God isn't even the name of God. It's just an English word that we all agree to use to talk about the divine force. And other languages, it's another name like Dios or Dieu or Zeus or Yemaya or Oshun or whatever you want to name God. Nana is what a lot of people call God in the continent of Africa. And so if I had said in the back of that Jeep, oh, Yemaya, he wouldn't have been upset at all. But I use this one English word that we attach to the concept of God. Come on. He was a great guy, though. He was a great guy. I'm talking to him now just about that one thing. But he was He was the kind of doctor you'd go and you'd have poison ivy and he'd go, oh, just put some white shoe polish on that. So I went around my whole childhood with big splotches of white shoe polish. I don't know why. I guess it kind of worked. So when Lao Tse says the Tao which can be named is not the Tao, he goes on to say that naming is the beginning of a myriad things. In other words, naming is the beginning of separation in the world and the illusion that we're not all one. So once you try to name God, you're in an illusion. So that's a lot about the name of God. It's not very clear for something that is so attached to a big threat in there. It's not very clear what misusing the name of God is. Holding up the name of God like a banner and misusing it. So I can't believe that it's cussing, because cussing cannot be worse than murder in that you're not cleansed for that. Whatever that means too. Okay, so there are people who use the name of God all the time. And we're in Texas, even though we're in Austin. People use the name of God all the time when we say, God bless you. And people in certain circles say, God told me to talk to you. Or God has a wonderful plan for your life. Or God would like this thing. Or God wouldn't like this thing. And you hear this coming out of the mouths of very nice people, kind-hearted folks, good folks, sincere believers. And then there are those who use it thoughtlessly. And then there are those who use it for power or greed. These are the people I'm talking about. I think people who use the name of God for power or to get elected or for greed are the ones who are breaking the Third Commandment. I don't think it's a little kid saying, oh my God. I think it's the people who are holding up the banner of the name of God to line their own pockets or to get elected. And I think it's the people who hold up the banner of the name of God to say hurtful and cruel things to folks who are struggling to do their best to get along. I think it's when they say, we had Hurricane Sandy because of all the women getting abortions and the gays and the feminists. And we had Hurricane Katrina. You remember that? Because New Orleans is so wicked. And I don't know what they said about Houston. I guess Houston has gay people too. And it looked to me with those two hurricanes like God was targeting the oil industry. But I don't believe in that, so. But that would have made a lot more sense given the way those two hurricanes went. And then there's the Phelps family. We all know that pickets funerals of American soldiers with big signs saying what God hates and what God likes. And God hates America, and God hates soldiers, and God likes when people die, and all that kind of stuff. That is breaking the Third Commandment, my brothers and sisters, in my opinion. Thank you. And then there are those who are evangelists who do not seem to have a pure heart. I don't mind a sincere evangelist. Go for it. This is America. But if you're somebody like, and we have a lot of them here in Texas, so if you're somebody like Ted Haggard, who was actually in Colorado, he was president of the American Association of Evangelicals, representing about 30 million people. He lifted high the banner of God to preach constantly, which gives you a clue, about homosexuality, constantly. And then he was accused by a gay escort of hiring him once a month and asking him to buy crystal meth so they could get high together. You remember that? He said he hired him to just carry his luggage and that they threw the drugs away. And when I'm a better person, I won't feel happy when I read news like that. And I plan to be a better person soon. And of course, there's Jimmy Swaggart, who was caught with professional ladies and then caught drinking and driving. And now I don't think we've had a scandal like that in a while. I think the televangelists are kind of on the decline, although it could just be that I live in Austin now. And I don't turn the television on to that station anymore. We used to have a lady on Channel 16 in South Carolina who had hair that was pink. Have you ever seen her? She and her husband are evangelists together, and her hair is huge and pink, and she has like Tammy Faye Baker eyelashes, and she cries and asks for money. And I used to be on the mailing list of someone just because I collect odd religious things as a hobby, which I'm not proud of, but I used to be on the mailing list for Reverend Ewing's church by mail. And he was breaking the Third Commandment because he targets the poorest, lowest income zip codes in America and does mass mailings. And I got one in my mailbox, and I just started sending him $1 every time he would send me something, just so I could keep getting stuff from him, because he would send you a prayer rug. He said, give me $1 and I'll send you a prayer. He said, give me the biggest bill you've been holding and shepherding for the rent, and send that to me, and I will send you, yes, wickedness. And then I will send you this prayer rug. And so I sent off $1 for the prayer rug, and it had this picture of, like the Shroud of Turin picture of Jesus on the prayer rug, and you were supposed to kneel down and stare at it until Jesus' eyes opened. And then he sent me this prayer cap with his handprint on it. It was a transparent shower. I'm so embarrassed telling you this. It was a transparent shower cap with a big red handprint on it, which I kept for many years and finally gave to a friend of mine who was in the hospital so she could scare the nurses. Nurses don't scare that easily. Takes a lot, and it totally didn't work. But, so if someone makes money making people feel guilty, that is wickedness. Also, if someone makes money playing on people's hopes of getting rich, that is wickedness. There are ministers who say, send me your seed money and then your money will grow. So send me $100 and you will have a tenfold return in your bank account. And it is not the richest people who believe this and send that in. This is wickedness. A person who used to work for one of these ministries said that they would get lined up at these tables, and the mail would come in, and they'd have a letter opener, and they were to take out the cash and toss the letters. And they were pulling in about $1,000 an hour. Politicians who raise up the name of God to further their ambition, who introduce legislation to keep the 10 Commandments in the courthouses, but they can't name the 10 Commandments, who sponsor anti-gay legislation, hammering at folks about family values while cheating on their wives, spouses, stealing money. These people are carrying the name of God in an empty way. So it feels to me that this commandment is about religious hypocrisy, as if we would know who Jesus would bomb, what Jesus would drive, who would Jesus beat up, who would Jesus shut out of a restaurant. These things are not religious freedom, they're religious toxic mistakes. Now, Unitarian Universalists also fall short of our religious practice. We know our principles, but we don't necessarily live by them. We affirm and promote them for other people or in a kind of a global way, but we don't start with our homes and our churches. We're short with one another when we should be patient and kind. Some people male bash when you shouldn't do that. We get ugly about our differences of opinion sometimes. We denigrate one another, or we ignore the stranger in our midst because it's more comfortable to talk to people we already know. Or we have lots of principles and talk about politicians all the time, but we don't go vote. Do we carry the banner of our principles cynically for power or money? I can't really figure out how we would do that. I don't really want to spend that much mind time on it. I think there's good religion and bad religion, and I think most of it is mixed because people are mixed. And I think only a little religion has to do with God, as I understand God. And nobody knows, even though people talk like they do. They don't know. And if people are talking to you about God, what God thinks or what God likes or what God doesn't like, you can say kindly, we don't know. If you would like to be less kind, you could say, you don't know. Nobody really knows. Our task is to clean up our own hearts and minds and to notice hypocrisy when it happens in us as well as in others.